It's November 2nd, and that means it's time for the last planting of 2024 or the first planting of 2025, depending on how you look at it. Of course, what I'm going to be planting now is my garlic. I've saved it since July, had it set aside. I actually had it in my refrigerator. Now, you probably don't need to keep it in your refrigerator, but I like to do that just to keep it from sprouting. So I've got my garden bed all prepared for the bulbs to put in the ground. And this year, I had a pretty good harvest this year on my garlic. Bulbs were a lot bigger than they've been in the past, but I'm hoping to get even bigger. But before we get to planting the garlic, I got to separate the cloves from the bulb. So I keep my garlic, as I said, in the refrigerator in a paper bag. And these were the largest bulbs I thought that I had. So I figured I could get 6, 7, 8 cloves per bulb from here. Like this one looks really well defined, so I should be able to get some really big ones. But once I peel off the cloves from the bulb, I'm going to choose just the biggest ones and then plant them out. And if I need more, then I can come back and get the slightly smaller ones. Of course, the bigger the clove, the bigger the bulb you're going to get. I don't know if I found an easy way never to peel the bulbs, but I try to crack the stem and just pry them out. And be careful though not to damage them. So you want to keep the paper on them as much as possible. You can take out this outer layer of paper, that's fine, but you don't want to get down to the clove itself. Now this is the music variety of garlic, and I've grown this in my garden now for 3 or 4 years. And I think part of the reason why it's there, they did as well as they did this year, is because they're beginning to acclimate to the environment. And I've just been using the same from the original stock that I got, and I just replant them every year. So I'm going to go through these bulbs and peel off the cloves, and I'll be back when I'm done. So I ended up with 47 bulbs, and that surprised me. I thought I was going to have more, but instead of having 6, 7, 8 cloves per bulb, I ended up having like 5 bulbs per bulb. And some of them were really large, like this one. But I got a bunch of decent sized bulbs here. Another nice large one. So I'm hoping to get some really big bulbs out of those. So after I'm done planting all these out, I've got more inside that weren't quite as large as these. And I'm going to, if I need to, I'll go back in and get some extra bulbs to plant out the entire bed. So this is the bed I'm going to be planting the garlic in. And just before we get started, I figured I would just show you this. I think this is a garlic bulb from last year that I missed, and it's sprouted. We had a very warm fall, and we've also had a very dry fall. So this sprouted up on its own, so I figured I would just leave it here. This is where I had my garlic last year, so I moved it to the other side of the garden. This popped up, but I'll leave that one to grow, and we'll see what happens. This sprouted about a month or so ago, so it's got a really early start, but it's going to die back in the winter time. So now let's get to planting the garlic. So what I've done is I've laid out a tape measure, and I've got a large dibble. It's an old shovel handle, I think, and I just rounded off the end, and I've marked off 4 inches depth on the end, and I'm going to go along and do every 7 inches. I'll put a hole in and push this down to the 4-inch depth. That way I can get a consistent spacing, a consistent line all the way down. And then I'll do the same thing on this side and go all the way down. And then doing an offset, a 7-inch offset. So if I have one bulb planted here and one bulb planted here, Then over here, I can start and begin another line and go 7 inches. So I'll have 3 rows of garlic bulbs planted. Now last year I did 4-inch spacing, so I had a lot more planted in a particular area. I was just shocked to learn this bed is actually 15 feet long. For some reason, and since I built it, I always thought it was 12 feet. And that's how I always planned my garden. I don't know why I didn't know it was 15 feet long, but it's 15 feet long, so I know that now. And we'll see how many bulbs I actually need, since it's 3 feet longer than what I thought it was. It's also about 21 inches wide, so we should be able to easily space our bulbs 7 inches apart and get 3 rows out of it. So I'm going to start about 4 inches out from the edge of the bed and then just push down into the soil until the line that I made, whoops, where's my thing? There it is. So the line I made is at the soil line. Now, as you can see, well, maybe not. Okay, there you go. As you can see, the soil is very dry. So I'm going to continue down, because talking and trying to count 7 inches is too much for my brain. So I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, the first row is done. And that's actually 25. So when I do the next one, that'll give me 50. And that's already more than the cloves that I have. So it's gonna be probably slightly less than 25 here. So I'm gonna definitely have to use a few of the garlic cloves that I'd saved. I think even if it wasn't 3 feet, the bed wasn't 3 feet longer than I thought it was, I still would have had to tap into that extra garlic. So with the first 2 rows laid out, it's much easier now just to come through with the dibber and go into the middle row in between the holes that we've got here, and they'll be just naturally spaced out 7 inches. And so we'll go down and complete this row and be ready to start planting the bulbs. So all the holes are drilled in, and it's going to give us 74 garlic bulbs. It's clear I should have watered this in before I started. Wasn't thinking of that though until I actually started poking the holes in the ground. But we've got it done, and I can always just push the clove down far enough into the ground because the ground is so dry and soft. So my next step will be adding compost. This is sifted, sifted compost that my chickens made for me. It's not fine sifted. It's a 1/4 inch screen that I use to sift it. And so I'm just going to take a cup here and just go along and put a little bit into each hole. It's probably more than it needs. But like I said, I can just push the clove down through this until they're 4 inches deep. So other than marking out the holes, my going in that 4-inch depth with my dibber really was a waste of time, because I've filled up the holes. They filled in themselves. So I'm just going to take a bulb, a clove, and I'm going to push it down to what should be about a 4-inch depth. So they're down there pretty good. And I guess I'll be back when I'm done with this. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that when you plant a garlic bulb or a clove, you take the flat side
oops, you take the flat side and you plant that down, pointy side up. I'm sure nature would find a way otherwise, but it gives your garlic an easier time to grow if it doesn't have to make a U-turn and start heading up. So flat side down, pointy side up, and just push it into the ground. This is also, this music variety is also a hardneck variety, so it's going to develop a scape, and that gives you a second harvest in that you can harvest the scapes. I'm always using the scapes in my cooking in the kitchen, but you cut them off, otherwise all the energy of the clove goes into what's going to be seed and not into producing big bulbs.
So all the garlic is planted now, and about half, maybe a little bit less than half of the bulbs were of equal size to what I originally planted. And then the remainder were what I guess I would call medium-sized bulbs, probably on the order of what I planted last year. So I think I should still get a really good harvest. Got nearly 75 cloves in here. This will be my largest planting ever. We'll see how it comes along. I'm interested in seeing whether this wider spacing, deeper planting than I've done in the past. So we're going to try that out. And we'll see what kind of cloves we get next year, what kind of bulbs we get next year. But now, just going to rake over the ground, smooth it out, cover up the bulbs, and it's just a matter of coming through and lightly covering up the planting holes. I'm giving the garlic a good soaking. They said to give them a good head start. I'm not going to give them any fertilizer. In the springtime, when they first come out, I'll give them a good dose of a high nitrogen fertilizer. So this is the last planting of 2024, first planting of 2025. So the last thing I'm going to do is cover the bed with a thick layer of chopped leaves. I've been driving around my neighborhood, picking up the leaves that people have bagged. Thank you very much, neighbors. And bring them back, run them over with my lawnmower, and I put them in my leaf mold pile. Every year I make a big leaf mold pile. I use that as an amendment to my soil to build structure in the soil. It has no real nutrients, but it creates a really rich, loamy soil. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to take the leaves and start dumping them out. It's not easy with one hand, but I think you know how to dump out leaves. So I'm going to cover the whole bed with this amendment. We'll check in, of course, when the garlic itself starts to sprout. So if you want to see what we were doing in the garden last week, check out this video right here, and then subscribe and hit that notification bell. And that way you'll be able to follow along in the progress on all of our vegetables as we try to grow a supermarket in our own backyard. Okay, thanks for watching.